Hey, and welcome back to VFX Tutors. As you know, I'm Josh, and in this tutorial we're going to be continuing with our Booble project. So we've done quite a lot already, we've done a lot of the prep work, and previously we did the sort of technical layout for our scan. So now in this one, because we're prepping some of the data, we may as well do our HDRI as well. So I've got much more thorough, in-depth tutorials on how you create and HDRIs and sort of the method that goes into creating them. This one's just going to be kind of just a walkthrough of the process, so it should be a fairly quick tutorial. But if you want to know more in-depth stuff, I do have more sort of detailed tutorials on that, and I'll link it in the description as well. So hopefully you guys have been enjoying this tutorial series, and I know it's been a really long one, but it will be worth it in the end. This was probably the very first ever tutorial series that will go from A to B of VFX shots, and it's why it takes so long. No one wants to do it, so I'm going to giving it a shot. So yeah, just stick in there with it, and you'll have something great at the end. Like I said, think of it as like a university degree for free. And yeah, I'm going to stop going on. So yeah, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. It really does help. Drop some comments in the comment section. Say whatever you feel like, I guess. But yeah, let's get going and create this HDRI. Thanks for watching. Okay, so what I use for stitching my HDRIs together is PT GUI, and it's a fairly simple piece of software. It's very similar in sort of its operating as Agisoft. It's a very simple UI. You can't really go hugely wrong with it apart from taking the photos and the organization of stuff. So up here at the top left, we just have load images. So we're just going to load the images, and you'll have, if you've downloaded all the stuff, you should have the shoot day one and day two. And there's a reason there's a day 2 one. And you're probably thinking, why wouldn't you do them all on the shoot day? So whilst we're shooting and we're finishing up, a group of people decided to turn up and have a little party at our filming area, and they wouldn't move. And they stayed there and got drunk and taking lots of interesting drugs and all that sort of stuff. So we couldn't really hang around for much longer because we couldn't really do anything with them effectively ruining the shoot. So I quickly got one before it got a bit crazy. We left basically. So that's pretty much what happened. We couldn't really do much about it. It's public place, so yeah, it's one of those things. We can't quite see in here. Get the source images. We'll wait till it's so yeah. We'll go to the crop, and you can see they're kind of right in the way of where we would want to do our HDRI. So obviously, when you're doing your HDRI, you want it as close to subject as possible. So obviously, our character was in here. We couldn't get it in there without causing arguments and stuff, so we just kind of left them to it and let them have their little crack party at the at the wherever this was, this sort of shelter thing, and we moved on. And because it was good weather, I was fairly confident that we should be able to get what we need the next day, even though it's not the same weather. Anyway, we need to stop going on about that. So I've gone through, and you can see all these, and these are all like bracketed images, so they're all different exposures. We can go through and see they get lighter and brighter and lighter and brighter. And I won't go through and explain this because I've got loads of tutorials on how the more in-depth this. We're just going to go through and process it. So the first thing that I'll usually do is, you don't always have to do it. You can just change your crop just so it knows not to bring in any of that. And that will be the same for all of them. So once they've all loaded, it's best to wait for all these to load in because it just works. It will ask you to wait anyway when you go on line images. So hopefully, if you've not messed around with any of the image sequencing, or because you just want to open this and import it and save it, you don't want to reorganize anything. You want this window to pop up, and this basically says it's reading your bracketed exposures, and it will understand what it needs to do straight away. So it sees it it can see there's 8 sets of 10 bracketed exposures. So it'll automatically align them and assign them to their positions. So this is good if this is working. So we need to change it to enable HDR, then true HDR, then just click OK. This is going to go through and hopefully this should work. Most of the times it does, but there are some things, sometimes it doesn't. One of the most common things that happens with my camera, it's quite old and it has like a gimbal in it, so it knows whether if it's landscape or portrait. I think because my camera's very old and it's got lots of marks and dents on it, sometimes it cannot figure out positions of things, which it seems to have done here. So it says PT GUI is not made able to match all your images. So we can go click on yes, and you can see it's just loads of images that it's not lined up. So I kind of already know which ones these are going to be. It's going to be these downwards ones, and the zenith and then the deer ones. These are sort of the extra ones. This is purely because I know my camera and it does this quite a lot. Yours may not, because mine's very old and seen a lot of damages. It's been dropped probably a few times that I would like to admit. So I'm just going to actually remove these last ones. Then I'm just going to go to my lion images again and just click OK. And hopefully that should not ask us for that. And it's probably these sort of things can happen if you don't level your tripod, because it needs to know the rotation, so sometimes it can misalign things. But I know it's kind of I know the issue because it happens often on my camera. And you can see that window's not popped up, and we can see that we've now got our HDRI. So this is just the viewing of it, so it will be quite dark. This is not what we're seeing this in a linear color space. So this is not what it's going to be. But what I will do is, if this was my only HDRI, I would know that I would kind of like to paint these guys out, and probably we'll need to paint out the sun and put a CG light in there. So I want to make sure that so I don't really want my sun to share half and half, because it's not really a massive pain to paint it out, but it's a hell of a lot easier to paint it out when it's just in the picture. And the same with this. So I'm just going to straighten my horizon. And I'll just go through and straighten everything roughly to what it is. And you can see we've got a color chart. And I'm just going to drag this over here. And if I click Create Panorama, it will go to our Create Panorama tab. Like I said, it's pretty simple to use. And I'm going to change my HDR file to Open EXR. And what I do is, well, my GPU is not great. So I think usually you can have this your card on, and sometimes it can get stuck. So I'll leave that on and we'll see how it goes. And we'll just go to Browse, Shoot Data, and we'll just make a new file here called HDRI. So you can see that I'm keeping everything kind of in its useful place. We'll just call this, so I'm calling everything very similar, day 1 underscore HDRI. Save. And okay, because I know my computer and my graphics card's on it, it's probably gonna, it might not. Sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it does. And apparently today it doesn't. So it might be because I've just turned my computer off and on. But when you're stitching stuff together, it does take quite a large amount of memory to use, because it's sort of, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but this is what happens sometimes with mine, because my graphics card's not the best. So if you're getting this and it's sort of getting stuck at a certain point, can just cancel it, and I'm just going to go to my stitching on the GPU, and I'm actually going to turn my GPU off. Just do it all on my CPU. Just going to click OK. Now if I create Panorama, it'll be a little bit slower, but I know it will go through. And this is just because I know I probably just need to upgrade my computer, basically. It's it's not super old, but yeah, that's just solving one of the problems that you could come across if you don't have the best graphics card. So you can just do it all on the CPU. It's a little bit slower, but it will churn away and get it done. Yeah, it'll take its time. Cool, and that should be done. So I'm just going to navigate to that quickly. Cool, and then we'll have our two folders here. So we'll have the low dynamic range one, which is basically a JPEG, which won't be converted. So this will be converted from linear to JPEG, so the color space will be all wrong. It's just a thumbnail, so you can see if it's stitched all right. And we can see it's worked all right. And we've got a color chart. We've got our party goers here. And if we double click on this, it will probably open it in Photoshop. And hopefully, I can't remember what I last had open in Photoshop, so alpha is transparency. Okay, so it's just loads of thumbnails. Cool. So this is what it should look like when you bring it in here. And you can see these guys having a great time with a little speaker and stuff, ruining our shoot day. And if you just go to the image, and you can do this in Nuke, but it's just quicker to do it this way. So I can go to my exposure, and you can see now that the HDRI light source is coming from the sun, although it may not be at the correct exposure values for what we need to completely duplicate this. So we will probably end up, well, once we get to the lighting stage, we'll see what it looks like and we can test it out. But we can see that we've got loads of dynamic range here. The light is coming from where the light, and we can enhance the shadows, and you can see where it's kind of burning out here on the white. But yeah, we're pretty much done. I won't go on, and I'll go through and we can do the other ones. And so that one's done. We don't necessarily have to save it, but you can save it. So I'm just going to go to my load images, and you can see on the day 2 HDRI, we've got some other ones of the ones that I would have rather have got that are actually more useful to us. So I won't go through all of these because it'll just be doing the same thing over and over, but it'll be nice just so you can see that you do have all the data you need, which is nice because you won't always get that when you're working in VFX. So I'm just going to look through these and see which ones I want. So this is the front. I think I did the back first, then the front. So I might as well just go do the front. Open that just so we can see it. Won't go through it well. We'll see how long it takes. I just want to see how long this is actually going so far. 13 minutes, so it's not too bad. So you can see now we've actually got HDRIs of the areas that we actually would prefer without having those people ruining the day. And this just gives us a more accurate representation of, although like it's quite a clear day, and you can see even in this, we've got a pretty similar sort of, it's at roughly the same time of day. I don't think it was the next day, it was like the day after. Clear blue skies, and around 1-2 o'clock, I think we shot both of it. So hopefully they should be good enough with maybe a little bit of grading and stuff. But let's have a look at some of these other ones. So yeah, clear blue skies, and yeah, so it should be pretty close-ish. And you'll have all these to download as well, so feel free to choose whichever ones you want. And I expect it always happens with mine. Like you can manually align. Like it doesn't take any time to add those extra points in, but I always find that actually like I rarely actually need these the top and bottom ones. So we'll just go true HDR and see how that goes. And I might just need to recalibrate my camera basically. Just never really get around time to doing it. But yeah, hopefully there are lots of tools in here which I could have gone through, but I'll do that more in those other tutorials. So I don't really necessarily need to go through them. It's more of just this is like just a walkthrough of the entire process that I'm doing. And you know, you can see on this one that it's actually worked. So that's all nicely loaded in. So now we've aligned it. If we really wanted to, we can try and mask out some of the stuff that we don't want in there. This will take it longer to process, but what we can do is if we just put this here, and in our mask section, sorry, we have paint red to hide content, paint green to force show it, and white to erase it. So if I now try to hide this, and this will work because we've done our alignment and our bracketed images. What that will do is that should translate to all the other images as well. So where is our mask gone? So now we can see that it's actually removed it from our HDRI here nicely. So maybe even try and get rid of that shadow. And now that shadow's gone. This will take longer on the processing though. That is the only downside of it, I find. So sometimes I find it actually easier to just paint it out afterwards. So I'm going to do the same thing again. Open EXR, go to browse. Day 2. I get a new folder called HDRI. Probably should have got processed. But, day 2. HDRI. Save and create Panorama. And it might just take longer last time because my graphics card is not the best. So I'll just switch it all over onto the CPU. It is slower, but it gets through it eventually. But yeah, hopefully you guys have been enjoying these tutorials. I know it's been a very lengthy process. So this is how long things take. But in reality, when it only feels that long because the tutorials are spread out. If you actually add up all the time spent doing it all, like the character creation, you could probably do that all in a week. If you're learning, maybe not so. But it's not at this stage for whilst you're learning. It's all about taking your time, doing it right. Speed doesn't matter. All that matters is that you learn the processes and get through the sort of, you get the final product correct instead of doing it fast and wrong. There's a lot of that. People would rather you take your time and have it correct so it works with everyone else. So don't be worried if things are taking longer than you would hope. They do at the start, and it's just practice and practice and practice that makes you go a little bit faster. And just, yeah, it's all it is really. The more you practice, the faster you get. So don't worry about trying to be the fastest artist in the world. Cool, so we'll just go... Open that up in Photoshop. Cool, and that's loaded in, and it's all nicely cleaned out. I have no idea what any of this means. I'm not even going to translate it because I imagine it's probably not very nice. So feel free to paint all that stuff out. I'd rather not know what it says and just be naive to it. I'm sure there's some really horrible stuff if you know what language that is. But yeah, that's it. And we have the other ones on the other side and further up. So yeah, we're pretty much done. There's no point me going too much on about this. So yeah, I hope you guys have been... We're getting further and further closer to the end of this. Well, we're still quite a long way to go, but yeah, hopefully you're getting through this and enjoying it. Like I say, it's like going to university for free, and you're getting probably more from it anyway. So don't forget that like and subscribe button. It does help. If you've got any comments, drop them in the comment sections and stuff like that. So yeah, and trying to think what we'll do next. Next one, because we've done a layout and we have done our HDRI, so we don't have to do any more processing of stuff. So we'll actually probably put our, because at the moment our image sequences are at a sort of element range where it's come straight off the camera, so they're all at 5K. We're not going to be doing our stuff at 5K because I can barely do stuff at 4K. So we're going to go through in the next one and just prep our footage to be ready to be used, basically, to put it into our sort of working delivery resolution. So yeah, I'm just stop going on because I'm just talking rubbish now. But anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed it. Don't forget that like and subscribe button, and see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.